Irene Khan, we're speaking to you in Geneva, Switzerland. Geneva, the Geneva Conventions. Can you talk about how the conventions specifically protect journalists?
Well, the convention gives journalists civilian status, which means that, like all other civilians, they should not be targeted during the war. The problem is the journalists are not just civilians. They're the kind of civilians that have to go to the front line and not run away somewhere else. You know, they are not like women and children who can move and seek shelter elsewhere. They have to be where the fighting is, and that exposes them. They're much more like humanitarian workers, and journalists need to be recognized as humanitarian workers.
Oh, snap. So, by the Geneva Convention, journalists are considered civilians, which are not to be targeted. And even more than civilians, they are supposed to be regarded as humanitarian workers. Therefore, Israel not only murdered journalists, not only did they murder civilians, but they murdered humanitarian workers, because telling the truth is a humanitarian service. And if you're against people who are humanitarian, what the fuck does that make you? So as of late, there have been more killing of journalists in Gaza for the crime of reporting the truth of what's been happening on the ground. As we know, there have been murders that have been happening for the last 2 years going on since October of 2023. There's estimates of 400,000 plus Palestinians that have been murdered in Gaza. There are also hundreds of thousands that are starving, that are being starved as we speak by the state of Israel, not allowing aid to go through. And it's not even just limited to just Palestinians. Even the Israeli hostages that are being held by Palestinian resistance are also starving as well, which means that Israel is not only murdering Palestinians, but they're also murdering their own. And so this is a story that has really swept through the airwaves over the last day, but I would like to give my thoughts on it. So we're going to be getting into this story here. And also we're going to be getting into some of the nuts and bolts of the story as well. So we're going to be starting off with this report from Democracy Now! They actually are talking about this very subject. And so we'll talk about it throughout, and then we'll get into the article from Al Jazeera on the other side. So let's go.
I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez. Global condemnation is mounting over Israel's assassination of one of the most prominent journalists in Gaza, the Al Jazeera correspondent Anas al-Sharif, along with 4 of his colleagues at the network and another freelance journalist. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres is calling for an independent investigation after the 5 journalists were killed in a targeted Israeli strike outside Al-Shifa Hospital in a tent clearly marked in Gaza City. European Union officials and international press freedom groups have also denounced the assassinations. The 6th journalist, freelance reporter Mohammed Al-Khaldi, was also killed in the same strike. Minutes before the strike, Al-Sharif posted to X, quote, "If this madness does not end, Gaza will be reduced to ruins, its people's voices silenced, their faces erased, and history will remember you as silent witnesses to a genocide you chose not to stop," unquote. On Monday, crowds of mourners gathered for a funeral procession for al-Sharif and his colleagues, marching from Al-Shifa to Sheikh Radwan Cemetery in central Gaza, carrying the journalists' bodies wrapped in white sheets, a dark blue flak press jacket, and a Palestinian flag were placed on al-Sharif's remains. People embraced as they decried Israel's relentless targeting of journalists in Gaza.
So let's start here. You know, one of the things that a lot of people talk about is freedom dies. One of the first victims, if not the first victim of totalitarianism and when freedom dies is when the truth is snuffed out, when free press is no longer around. If Israel is truly the free society, quote unquote, that it claims to be, why not show the actual reporting that's being done on the ground? This is all because if somebody actually shows the truth of what's going on the ground, then the narrative cannot be painted by Israel. When you look at the facts for what they are objectively, what ends up happening is people form an opinion around the objective facts. And the person who wants to paint a specific narrative, well, if the facts don't bear out, their narrative crumbles. And so what we're seeing now is the attempt by Israel to destroy truth tellers in this process. 200. Remember that number. 200 journalists murdered by Israel since October of 2023. 200 truth tellers. 200 reporters. 200 lives taken by the Zionist state because Zionism thrives on deception. If you don't want the truth to come out, then that means you want deception. Why would you want to deceive? If the truth sets people free, then let the truth bear the facts out. But the state of Israel isn't interested in the truth. No. They want to paint a narrative of these people need to be otherized. These people need to be ostracized simply for who they are and resisting against illegal, unjust, unethical occupation. They're doing exactly to the Palestinians where white illegal occupiers of this land have done to the indigenous on this land, calling them savages, making a case, a narrative that somehow them defending the land that they are on and defending their lives is somehow wrong. This right here is a result of supremacist manifest destiny in real time. And this is exactly what it is. And those of us who look at something like manifest destiny and we go, oh my God, how could people do this? This is how. Some of y'all, not all of y'all, but some of y'all who may be watching this have fell for it. Just like some of our ancestors fell for it in the past, you're falling for it now. Because the supremacy of it, which is also white supremacy and unfortunately Jewish supremacy, is that they regard the lives of certain people better than others. They don't view a life for a life. They don't view all lives as precious. They view the lives of particularly white Zionist lives over those of lives of people who may be brown or black. This is why I say this. Show me a Zionist and I will show you a racist. Show me a Zionist and I will show you a white supremacist. And I don't care if they share the same amount of melanin as me, because internalized white supremacy does exist. Internalized Jewish supremacy does exist. There is supremacy. And fortunately, there are a lot of people out there who are Jewish who speak against this, who speak out against this crime, because they know for a fact and deep in their hearts that this is wrong, and they speak out against it, even at the cost of their lives, freedom, as well as opinion within the public sphere. Let's continue.
Meanwhile, at rallies and vigils worldwide, people are demanding accountability for the attack on journalists, including in Tunisia, Belfast, Dublin, Berlin, London, Oslo, Stockholm, and Washington, D.C. For more, we go to Geneva, Switzerland, where we're joined by Irene Khan, UN Special Rapporteur on Freedom of Opinion and Expression. She served as Secretary General of Amnesty International from 2001 to 2009. Irene Khan, welcome back to Democracy Now! In late July, you publicly denounced Israel's threats against Anas al-Sharif. Can you talk about what you understood at that time? And then this young reporter, 28 years old, response to your press statement.
Yes, well, Anas actually contacted me, and Al Jazeera contacted me to tell me of this impending threat on his head. They had seen it before. He's not the first one, as you know. There are anything between 26 to 30 journalists who have been targeted in this campaign of assassination. And Anas wanted me to go public. He wanted others to go public to stop what Israel was doing. But at the same time, he thanked me for my support. And then he said nothing would stop him from speaking the truth. And in a way, he signed his own death warrant by that, because, as you know, he and the others, Al Jazeera's entire team in northern Gaza, were killed, murdered, just as Israel ramps up its military action on the city, Gaza City. So there is a clear pattern here of killing journalists to clear the path, to silence voices, to stop the international global opinion from being informed of the genocide in Gaza.
And Irene Khan, the number of journalists.
So let me stop there for a second, because what she just said there, this is about narrative control. The murder of Anas al-Sharif is about narrative control, because there's too many people that know the truth now. Look, let me show you something. This changed the game. It's changed the game, because you have hundreds of thousands of people in Gaza, one of these, that broadcast their own genocide for the entire world to see. And on top of that, you have journalists on the ground that are literally telling us in 4K what the hell is going on. And look, as the old phrase goes, a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? What is a video worth? Right? How many of you have been seeing what's been going on the ground in Gaza? Hell, we don't even have to go to Gaza. You can go to Rafah. You can go to Jenin. You can go to the West Bank. What have you been seeing on social media? On Twitter, Instagram, Reddit, Facebook, Blue Sky, whatever. Like, what have you been seeing since 2023? And many of us on independent media have actually been talking about the atrocities that's been going on in Gaza and throughout the entirety of Palestine proper before that. We were on this train before October 7th happened. And so then seeing this, we can't dismiss what our eyes have seen and our ears have heard. And we all collectively have seen that. Collectively, we saw the Holocaust that has been born before us. We have bore witness to genocide. We have borne witness to carnage. And now, instead of saying, you know what, you caught us, you got us. Yes, we were doing that. Israel's trying to sweep it under the rug. But we already stepped in the dirt. How can you sweep something up that's already been stepped in? We stepped in it, we looked down, we saw that our feet were dirty. And now you're trying to sweep it up? You're trying to sweep it under the rug so we can't see it? No. You can't run from this. You cannot run from this. And now the fact that you're murdering journalists, the world is against Israel. The world is against them. And I'm not saying the heads of state in different Western governments. No. I'm talking about the world, the people, the citizens. They stand with Gaza. They stand with Palestine. When will our governments do the same? And I'm not just talking about writing strongly worded letters or words of condemnation. No. Strongly worded letters don't feed babies. Strong condemnation doesn't stop killing people from being bombed in hospitals and mosques and temples, from being destroyed in synagogues. Yes, synagogues, because there are Jewish Palestinians too. The war of narratives has been lost. Israel is cooked. And as far as narratives is concerned, Israel is digging its own rhetorical and figurative grave to the point where you just subjected all 9 million people within your imaginary state to be ostracized by the rest of the world until they expire, until they take their last breath. Truth. Israel is literally putting Jewish people in danger. Let's continue.
Irene Han, the number of journalists, so more than 200 have been killed in Gaza. That's more than all the journalists killed in World War I, World War II, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, and the Afghanistan War combined.
Did you hear that? Did you hear how many journalists have been killed since October of 2023? Let's go over that again.
Been killed in Gaza. That's more.
Let me make sure we get this correctly.
number of journalists, so more than 200 have been killed in Gaza. That's more than all the journalists killed in World War I, World War II, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, and the Afghanistan War combined.
So all those wars, and there have been more killed in Gaza than all those wars combined. Zionists hate the truth. They hate the truth. They hate being faced with it. They kill the messengers. Instead of fixing what they are doing, they kill the messengers. I'm not going to be able to go through the entire report and interview, but I'll put the link to the interview in the chat. I want to go over the article that was placed out by Al Jazeera themselves, speaking about exactly what happened. But this is sickening. It's sickening. And as somebody that's an independent media, people like myself, those of us at RBN, those of us who are in independent media, whether it be Heartland's Media, the Gray Zone, Geopolitical Economy Report, Dr. Richard Wolff, Michael Hudson, it could be Margaret Kimberly in Black Agenda Report. It could be a number of us, Garland Nixon, Jamal Thomas, all of us that have been speaking out as independent media, that have been speaking out against this Holocaust that's been happening. I'm here to tell you this. If you think that this will continue, this will just stop and end in Gaza, if we let this system continue, it's going to come here. It's going to come here. So, I want to get into this article. And let me share this from Al Jazeera. It says, Anas al-Sharif among 4 Al Jazeera journalists killed by Israel in Gaza. It says Al Jazeera staff killed in targeted Israeli attack on a tent housing journalists near al-Shifa hospital. Tents. It's not like they were in some bunker. They were in tents. So it says the number of Al Jazeera journalists Israel killed was actually 4. And so it says Al Jazeera journalist Anas al-Sharif has been killed alongside several other colleagues in a targeted Israeli attack on a tent housing journalists in Gaza City. The attack late on Sunday on the tent looked outside the main gate of Gaza City's al-Shifa hospital. Also killed Al Jazeera correspondent Mohammed Quike. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing the name. And camera operators Ibrahim Zahar and Mohammed Lufal. Also killed were freelance cameraman Momin Aliwa and freelance journalist Mohammed Al-Khalidi. As continues, said shortly before being killed, al-Sharif, a well-known 28-year-old Al Jazeera Arabic correspondent who had reported extensively from northern Gaza, wrote on Twitter that Israel has launched intense concentrated bombardment, also known as fire belts, on the eastern and southern parts of Gaza City. In this last video, the loud booms of Israel's intensive missile bombing can be heard in the background as a dark sky lit in a flash of orange light. So this is what he's sharing here. This is one of his final tweets here. Let's take a look. I think I can play it on here. So. So that's what he's shown there. The translation from Arabic says nonstop bombing for the past 2 hours. The Israeli aggression on Gaza City has intensified. And so it says the reporter has expressed sorrow for having to leave his wife, Bayan, behind and for not seeing his son, Salah, and his daughter, Sham, grow up. So said Al Jazeera network condemned the killings, yet another blatant premeditated attack on press freedom. This attack comes amid the catastrophic consequence of the ongoing Israeli assault on Gaza, which has seen the relentless slaughter of civilians, forced starvation, and the obliteration of entire communities. One of the things that I would like to highlight is that this is a premeditated attack on press freedom. Now, the reason why I want to focus and hone in on this is because you remember how fervent everybody was on making sure that people like Julian Assange were released, were freed. Because we all said that it's about press freedom. It's about press freedom. If the United States can do what it can to Julian Assange, well, press freedom is lost. "200 journalists murdered in cold blood." Israel does not care about press freedom. And by extension, the United States does not care about press freedom, because the United States is really paying for the weapons that murder journalists. So therefore, the United States is also complicit in the murder of free press. Yes, the United States government is complicit in this terrorism. This is terrorism by people who run governments. People always want to talk about, oh my God, you're recording terrorists. Some of you have been fooled into courting terrorists. A lot of us were. But now that we know better, we know that essentially every single person that has occupied 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue has been a terrorist in some way, shape, or form. We know that people who occupy and work at the Capitol Hill building on either side, whether it be the Senate side or the House side, they are terrorists. We know that a 5-sided building called the Pentagon houses terroristic activity. And yet some of us think, well, as long as we get our health care, hey, right? As long as we can lower the price of eggs, well, hey, we're good. As long as somebody freezes our rent, hey, we don't care what happens over there. Destroying the world in this way will not help us at all. This is what you call burning the forest to keep yourself warm. You're burning the forest to keep yourself warm. That's what you're doing. Why do you think we tell people to leave both parties? Because they're literally burning the forest. And guess what? Guess what happens when the forest is burned down? Guess what? Your ass is going to freeze to death. This is why it's so important that we fight against this system. Because if we don't, the entire world is doomed. Let's continue on. So here are the journalists that were murdered. These are all the journalists. It says Israel has killed nearly 270 journalists and media workers in Gaza since October 7, 2023. Now, I want to get to this here. No proof of Hamas affiliation. In a statement confirming the deliberate killings of al-Sharif, Israel military accused the journalists of heading a Hamas cell and advancing rocket attacks against Israeli civilians and Israeli troops. It also alleged that it had documents providing unequivocal proof of his involvement with Palestinian group. Have we seen those documents? I haven't seen them. Mohammed Shahada, an analyst at the Euromed Human Rights Monitor, said there was zero evidence that al-Sharif took part in any hostilities. His entire daily routine was standing in front of a camera from morning to evening. Last month, after Israeli army spokesperson Avicii Ari reshared a video on social media accusing al-Sharif of being a member of Hamas military wing, the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Freedom of Expression, Irene Khan, who we just saw, said that she was deeply alarmed by the repeated threats and accusations of the Israeli army against al-Sharif. Al Jazeera, which has accused Israeli authorities of fabricating evidence to link itself to Hamas, had recently denounced Israel's military for waging a campaign of incitement against its reporters in the Gaza Strip. The Committee to Protect Journalists last month said it was gravely concerned for the journalist's safety and how he was being targeted by Israeli military smear campaign. Since Israel launched its war on the enclave in October 2023, it has routinely accused Palestinian journalists in Gaza of being Hamas members as part of what rights groups say is an effort to discredit the reporting of Israeli abuses. The Israeli military has killed more than 200 reporters and media workers since this bombardment began, including several Al Jazeera journalists and their relatives. So as we see here, they're trying to link them to what they consider to be terrorist organizations. Now, I'm going to say this. First of all, Hamas is a political organization as well. They have a political wing. Their resistance is a paramilitary wing of the political organization of Hamas, as well as they're not the only part of resistance. You have other groups as well that are also resisting illegal occupation by Israel. Also, under international law, it has been agreed upon that the people who are on a land that they are indigenous to, if they are being occupied, they have the right to resist their occupiers, including with force. And yet, Israel calls them terrorists. It's terrorists being called today. It was being called savages yesterday. Terrorist is just another word for savage that the West uses against brown people or black people for defending the land that they have been on for hundreds of thousands of years. That's what it is. And see, here's the thing. Even, look, I got to be very careful. I got to be careful. And occupied people have a right to defend themselves. And so if you have journalists that are reporting on the occupation, that occupation is illegal. And so therefore, to carry out resistance against it is duly legal by the international community. And reporting on the resistance as well as the crimes of the occupier is absolutely necessary for people to have a fully objective analysis of the situation on the ground. And so by getting rid of the people who are giving the source for the objective analysis on the ground, that basically means that group that's getting rid of the journalists have a lot to hide because they know they're wrong. I hate the fact that I have to be careful with this because, to be honest with you, living in the imperial core, you don't have as much freedom as you think you do. To tell the truth. You don't. There's another piece to this that I want to touch on, because a lot of people would say, talk about the Geneva Conventions, and I want to go back there to the video. Okay. I just want to make sure that I get this piece here too. Because a lot of people would say that, oh, well, they are, what they're doing is wrong. They're covering, one side or another. But let's give what the Geneva Convention says on journalists and how they should be treated in times of crisis like this.
We can get away with it.
Quickly, Irene Khan, we're speaking to you in Geneva, Switzerland. Geneva, the Geneva Conventions. Can you talk about how the conventions specifically protect journalists?
Well, the convention gives journalists civilian status, which means that, like all other civilians, they should not be targeted during the war. The problem is the journalists are not just civilians. They're the kind of civilians that have to go to the front line and not run away somewhere else. They are not like women and children who can move and seek shelter elsewhere. They have to be where the fighting is, and that exposes them. They're much more like humanitarian workers, and journalists need to be recognized as humanitarian workers.
Oh, snap. So By the Geneva Convention, journalists are considered civilians, which are not to be targeted, and even more than civilians, they are supposed to be regarded as humanitarian workers. Therefore, Israel not only murdered journalists, not only did they murder civilians, but they murdered humanitarian workers, because telling the truth is a humanitarian service. And if you're against people who are humanitarian, what the fuck does that make you? I'm sick and tired of this. I'm sick and tired of this, because everybody will say, "Well, we're against them doing what they're doing to journalists, but Hamas." You know how you can get Hamas to stop? Stop occupying their land. Leave them be. Give them their stuff back. I mean, the answer is literally easy. Well, where should the Israelis go? Back to Europe. They can go back to New York. Go back to Florida. No. They already got dual citizenship anyway. The fuck? Like, my goodness. Like, why are we sitting here going like, oh my goodness, well, where are they going to go? From? Like, it's time for y'all to know exactly what time it is. And they're like, well, we need a Jewish state. You know what? Let one of these Western nations carve out a piece of their land to make one if you really want one. But my thing is, honestly, like, go to many other different countries. Are they majority Muslim? Yeah. But are they exclusively Muslim? No. Did you know there are thousands upon thousands upon thousands of Jewish people in Iran? Jewish people in Iran are safe. They're safe. They're good. They're not in danger. There are Iraqi Jews. Iraqi Jews. I'm going to make a statement. And I want any of the anti-Zionist Jewish people to confirm this for me, including a lot of people who are at the gray zone. You guys ever see this? I'm willing to bet that Jewish people in places like Iraq, Yemen, Iran, I'm willing to bet that they are safer than Ethiopian Jews are in Israel. I'm willing to bet it. I'm willing to bet that they are actually safer than Ethiopian Jews are in Israel. So when we talk about how can we fix this, you take away the harm. And by the way, baby, this never started on October 7th of 2023. Baby, no, we got to go way back. We got to go to 1948. We got to go back. Because the problem is that this should have never happened. And by the way, Jews, Christians, secular people, Palestinians, Arabs, Muslims, they all lived together in harmony before the occupation. They were cool. But the interest of the parasite class They're the ones that wanted this to happen. It was never anything that was organic. The establishment of Israel was never a grassroots thing. It was manufactured. Go ask the Rothschilds. It was manufactured. It was paid for. So this is why it's so important for us to not only know the background of what happened, to listen to the journalists on the ground that are actually reporting what's really going on from the side of the marginalized, but also to study the history objectively to know exactly where things started. I want to thank my comrades at Real here in my city. Real is a group called Revolutionary Education Action League. They actually hosted a EduForum talking about the axis of resistance, namely Iran, and how they have become part of the resistance against Zionist occupation and occupied Palestine. And they were given the history behind it. And I just want to thank them for having that, because it was very educational, especially in regards to learning about why the axis of resistance is so important. And I'm going to be honest with you, one of the axis of resistance that I see emerging now is the Sahel states, the AES. Because the AES, the alliance of the Sahel states, namely Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali, are now kicking the asses of the West out of their countries. They're establishing their own economic ecosystem, and they're trying to grow into a united Africa. And it really starting to feel like the dream of Muammar Gaddafi being realized, because they did Gaddafi dirty. And that's an understatement. So the arc of the universe is long and it bends towards justice, but we have to do the bending. And that's exactly what's going on in Palestine right now, especially in Gaza. You have resistance that are bending the arc of the universe towards justice. And who's resisting the bending? Israel. Now, with that being said, I want to humanize al-Sharif. Now, he's not the only one that was murdered, but he's the one that is the most prominent. So let me share this as well. Make sure I get to this. So I want to humanize him because I think this is important. Because these aren't just journalists. These are people, human beings with lives, with love, with hopes, dreams, fears, aspirations. Here's al-Sharif here. It says Anas al-Sharif was a father, son of a husband, and beloved everyone in Gaza. He was everyone's hero as he never stopped covering the genocide of his people. He was murdered in a targeted airstrike today. So, I'm sorry. Let me make sure the sound's on.
الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات كانت لهم جنات الفردوس نزلا خالدين في.
I have to mute the music because I'm not sure if I'll get a copyright claim. But he's loved. He beloved. Speaking about what's going on. Talking to his people. Here he is. This is who he was. This is why I talk about this the way I do. Because you have to humanize these people. You have to do the opposite of what Israel is doing. Israel will demonize them. They will otherize them. No, our job as people are to humanize the victims of imperialism, humanize the victims of colonialism, humanize the victims of capitalism. This is what we do. This is why we do it, because we are human beings and they should not have to suffer like this ever again. It shouldn't just be the anti-Zionist Jews that are saying never again. It should be us that says it, and especially those of us who are Black Americans. When we say never again, it means that we don't want people to be enslaved like our ancestors were, to go through Jim Crow like we were. Guess what's going through Jim Crow right now? Palestinians are going through Jim Crow right now because it's just another name called apartheid. And so here's the thing. When we say never again, especially as Black Americans, as freedmen, then God damn it, let us apply it to everybody. It's not my problem, Mo. It's because it's over there. No, shut the fuck up. Because it is our problem. Because it's your government right now that you're trying to demand reparations from that don't give a damn about you, and now they're killing other people over there. That's why it's so important. And guess what? If they're going to continue to keep doing it over there, guess what? They're going to intensify the genocide of us Black people over here. Because they did it before, they're going to do it again. We're already still suffering. 400 years later, we're still suffering. The natives, 500 years later, are still suffering because of what these Western pigs, these demons, these vile monsters have been doing. And look what they're doing over there. This is why it has to stop. Why it has to stop? Because guess what? If it doesn't, we're all going to die. We're all going to die. Children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, brothers, sisters, cousins, everybody's going to pass away. All because of the greed of the parasite class. All because they want to own everything and everyone. This is what this is about. People. Do not let this system talk you out of your humanity. Don't let it do that to you. Don't let it rip you away from your humanity. Because then if you do, that makes you less human. I want to share this as well, while we're on the subject of humanizing. And I do apologize for getting really animated, but I just don't like seeing anybody suffer whatsoever. My heart breaks for many people around this world. And as we speak right now, I'm literally trying to get experts on to talk about what's going on in Sudan. It's just, it takes time. So I do apologize. But I'm trying to get experts to talk about Sudan too. And I would like to get experts to talk about Congo. But let's get here. Here's al-Sharif with his daughter.
بابا ترامب بقول بده يطلعنا من غزة. انت بدك تطلع من غزة؟ لا طبعا في غزة
بدك تضلك في غزة؟ ليش؟
عشان بحب غزة.
انت بتحب غزة؟ يعني
اه
بدكش تطلعي؟ طيب بدي اسافرك على قطر،
ولا طبعا
على الاردن،
لا
على مصر،
لا
على تركيا،
لا
على اي دولة.
أنا طبعا في هذه.
بدك تضلك هنا في غزة؟ يعني مش طالعة؟
بس طالعة من المرة.
مش طالعة نهائيا بالمرة؟ طيب قولي لهم احنا مش طالعين،
احنا بس طالعين
صامدين هان.
صامتين هنا.
يا روحي بابا.
Let this sit with you. If you're shedding a tear now, that's good. That means you're a human being. That means there's a heart there. If you're feeling sullen and sad, that's a good thing. That means your humanity's still there. Keep that. Don't let it go. Do not let the truth die. And we have to fight for freedom for all marginalized people. As the old saying goes, nobody's free until we're all free. Thank you so very much for watching my channel, and I deeply appreciate it from the top and bottom of my heart. If you wish to support the channel further, so I can keep bringing you content that is educational and informative, you can become a patron on patreon.com/Jaybefaunt. You can find that link in the pinned comment or in the description below. No matter what you give, you'll be supporting independent media and education that helps make the world better. Thank you so much, and you can watch more of my content here. Mwah. Forehead kisses, and have a beautiful day.